But there's also a clash between the logic of privatization itself, because so many of the tools that we need for this transformation of our economies and to do it as rapidly as we need to do it are tools that we lost when we privatized our energy systems, our transit systems in the 1990s. And this is an interesting part of what's going on in Germany now, with one of the most rapid energy transitions happening anywhere economies, and to do it as rapidly as we need to do it are tools that we lost when we privatized our energy systems, our transit systems in the 1990s. And this is an interesting part of what's going on in Germany now, with one of the most rapid energy transitions happening anywhere in the world, where Germany in a decade and a half has gone from having 6% of their electricity provided by renewable energy to 25% of their electricity provided by renewable energy, which is an incredibly rapid transition. It's almost as fast as the rest of us need to go. It's not perfect because it isn't being accompanied by a regulatory system that is telling the coal companies that they can't keep digging up coal, burning it, and exporting it. But it's a really, really good start. And part of what is allowing this to happen is that in hundreds of cities and towns in Germany, people have voted to take back their electricity grids from the private companies that purchased them in the 1990s. And they're doing this because the private companies aren't interested in being part of this energy transition, because they see it potentially hurting their profits. But part of the incentive in cities like Hamburg, which recently voted to take its grid back, is the prospect not just of being part of this renewable energy transition, but keeping the profits from energy production in the municipalities as a way of fighting austerity, because everybody knows that these profits are hemorrhaging into the pockets of these private energy companies. So here's the slightly tougher news. I think based on what I've said so far, it might be tempting to think that all we need to do is sort of go back to a pre-Thatcher era capitalism, and it's just a sort of a better form of Keynesianism that can get us out of this. The procrastination penalty hits us here quite a bit, and I'm really happy tonight that we have two of the world's leading climate experts, Kevin Anderson and Alice Bose-Larkin from the Tyndall Center, who I rely on really heavily in the book, and have arguably been some of our only truly honest climate scientists, because they aren't sugarcoating what it means to have waited this long. And what Anderson and Bose have been telling us is that we in the industrialized world, if we are not going to blow our carbon budget, if we do still want to stay below 2 degrees Celsius, then in countries like this one and where I'm from, we need to be cutting our emissions by 8 to 10% a year. Now, this is where Keynesianism doesn't get us out of it, because there is no precedent for that kind of emission reduction year after year at any point in our collective history except for the Great Depression. And we don't want a Great Depression, we want a great transition. We want this to be part of a strategic and deliberate process. It doesn't mean that we can't have parts of our economy that grow. Indeed, they must, but this is part of the challenge. As we roll out our new transit systems and new energy systems, because we currently are an economy that is based on fossil fuels, we will burn a lot of fossil fuel in order to get off fossil fuels. And because we've waited so long and are on such a tight budget, we simply can't do that. So we need to contract the demand side, we need to consume less, and we need to expand the parts of our economy that are already low carbon, like the caregiving professions. Healthcare is already low carbon, education, the arts. So this requires a kind of strategic planning that fell out of fashion a long time ago. We can't just leave this to the market. And this is where all these reports about green growth, I think, are a little bit dishonest, because the issue is not whether overall there's going to be a marginal increase in GDP from one year to the next. We're talking about a radically different approach to how one plans an economy. So friends in the environmental movement, and I do still have a few, have taken me aside lately, and sort of said very quietly, you know, Naomi, climate was already big enough. Did you have to make it about capitalism? You know, it was already a heavy lift. Here's what I think we have to remember. It's not like we're talking about an economic system that is working beautifully except for the small matter of rising sea levels. We're talking about allowing sea levels to rise in the name of protecting an economic system that is failing the vast majority with or without climate change. This is a system